Adventures Down Under, what it takes to actually recover meteorites and other fun adventures that he's had along the way. So Phil, thank you so much for doing this.
I'm going to bring my beer. Thanks to everyone for staying this long. And also, I'd just like to say thank you to Yvonne and everyone else at Survey for a great meeting. I've really enjoyed it. So thanks a lot, guys. This has been great. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, how do I advance this? Okay, is that it? Yes, sorry. A little bit about finding meteorites in Australia, what we need to do when we're down there, and a little bit about, the kind of unusual complexities that you have when you're searching there. So Australia is about the size of the contiguous United States. If we look at, that's Western Australia, Northern Territory, and South Australia. Outside of 5 towns, 1 million people live in that area. So it's incredible. It's very, very low population density. We zoom in a little bit. This is the area where we did a couple of the searches that I'm going to tell you about. These aren't just highways. They're actually the only tarmac roads, the only main tarmac roads in this entire area. So you can go for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers and be simply on dirt tracks. Unlike the US and the UK and pretty much anywhere in Europe, Australia actually has this great kind of remote medical service called the Royal Flying Doctor Service. But they're all light aircraft. So there's 2 things that you see from this picture. It's light aircraft, which means it needs a landing strip, and that car isn't owned by the Royal Flying Doctors. They have to fly to the nearest airstrip and then try and get hold of someone on shortwave radio, and then that person comes to them, and then they can try and come to you. So essentially, if something goes wrong on your trip, you've really got to be able to get to safety. No one's going to come and help you. The nearest helicopter might be 1,000 kilometers away and privately owned. So it adds a certain logistical complexity. Because of that, you've got to take absolutely everything that you need: water, fuel, kit to get you out if the car gets bogged. Enough cars that if 2 of them get out, you have mechanical problems. You've got a 3rd one that can get you to a main dirt track, and just everything else you can possibly think of. So that it's quite exciting because of that. There's obviously Australia's unique wildlife, which many people will have heard of. I think we break the record in terms of poisonous spiders. We've got scorpions, obviously poisonous snakes as well. And by the way, these are all our pictures. So I should point out this is stuff that most of this is not off the web. This was I think meter-long goanna. They're not poisonous, actually. They're really nice. They run really fast. They can run up you because they will try and run up a tree if you worry them. And sometimes they mistake humans for trees. So that's a problem. Apparently, they taste really good. I've never eaten one. So, but the goannas and all the rest, they're dangerous. You've got to keep an eye out. But lightning kills many more people in Australia than the wildlife. And again, this is from our trip, so that was quite an exciting storm. Okay, so I'll tell you about the first one that we did. This was a meteorite that we saw land in the kind of north-central part of South Australia, and again, like all of those tracks and all of those names on that map. All of those tracks are dirt tracks. Some of them you couldn't tell that they were a dirt track while you were on them. And the main, so Kubapedia is the main population centre. That's 3,000 people, and that town is the next biggest. That's got 60 people in it. So yeah. So after that, it's one sheep station which might have 5 people. So it's pretty remote. Zooming in a little bit, this is pretty much the spot that we had to get to. So we can take dirt tracks part of the way there, and then you're fully off-road. So what that means is you're really kind of picking your way by the side of salt lakes, over pretty tough terrain. So one car kind of goes in front and picks their way, and then you wait for that one to get bogged, and then you know you can't go that way, so then you kind of loop round and pull them out, and it's quite delicate business. And obviously you've got to do all of that in mind of being able to get out again, right? Because forget about searching for the meteorites, most important thing is you can get your people out. So 3 cars, as I say, with everything we need in them and everything we need to fix the cars if they break down. And this was our first night at this camp. So this gives a little bit of a panorama. You can kind of see the sort of place that we're camped. It's always nice when you light a campfire and you get that going, you know, that kind of feels a little more homely. You always sleep on the ground, so you sleep in swags, you know, the famous Australian swag, which is kind of a, you know, I guess like canvas wrap around a mat and a sleeping bag. When I first started to do trips in Australia, there was no mesh to cover it up. So the end was kind of open to all the disgusting creepy crawlies and bugs and things like that, which is just so gross because I'm arachnophobic, and I had to pretend to be tough because all the Australian, you know, the tough kind of guys, and yeah, so it didn't work very well. But incredibly beautiful place, and at night, you know, the sky is just fantastic. So kind of favorite thing at night, you just sit around the campfire and look up, and it's absolutely magnificent. So in the day when we go out searching, you know, obviously this particular trip really threw absolutely everything it could at us from a weather point of view. So every day when there wasn't kind of absolutely spectacular electrical storms, it was 45 degrees. And we basically had to come back to the cars at midday just to cool down. So we ran the AC just to cool down. So you know you need to keep cool. You need to carry all the water with you, and everyone has GPSs. Everyone knows where camp is, and you really got to keep in the minds of everyone there all the time. Keep an eye on all your teammates. Know how to get back. All of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of an interesting thing to lead a trip like that, to try and get the rest of the team up to speed on, you know, taking responsibility for everyone's safety. So this is us out searching. This place was kind of a mixture of salt lakes and scrub, that kind of thing. But beautiful. It's part of what they call in Australia the painted desert. So patches of it are beautiful, kind of oxidized. You know, there's like, I think, like hematite coating on a lot of it, and some really beautiful country. So at night time as well, when the sun's going down, it's absolutely spectacular. But we did have some very interesting weather, as you got a hint of at the beginning. On a couple of searches, I think we spent about 10 days at this site. So at the end of that, you are pretty smelly. A couple of days, you know, we had to retreat pretty fast, basically, because the weather's coming in. And like I say, one of the most dangerous things is lightning. So you can see how flat it is. If an electrical storm starts, you are the biggest, you know, topographic feature, and that's a big problem. So that's us kind of walking briskly because pretty horrible clouds are coming in. That's what it looked like. And then it started to pour down with rain. It was absolutely bonkers. And that's lightning. So that was, I think that one was about 3 hours. But we actually had so many storms that we had to spend 4 nights on the trot in cars. So because obviously you can't sleep outdoors in a swag when you've got it. So we would actually sleep indoors in the cars, which, you know, you've got, I think, 8 people sleeping in 3 cars in a cab. So basically no one slept for 4 nights. Yeah, which was, you know, but they still searched right? Still got them out every day, even though they were dead on their feet. And that's what dinner looked like after those storms. Believe it or not, it was actually still edible. So although this was the camp oven, so you bury that in the coals of the fire, and when the storm looked like it was coming in, I put soil over the top of it. So it worked like a slow cooker, and the food was actually edible at the end of it, which I was quite chuffed about. Input into that, it was a pork roast with with a nice mixture of vegetables. So. Yeah, it didn't look good, but it tasted good. And everyone seemed happy, you see. But we still got water on the ground, you can see from that one. So we carry on searching. On that trip, basically we localized it to about 3 square kilometers, something like that, 4 square kilometers. So we had a main mass that we estimated was about 3 kilos. And a lot of it, I mean, that's kind of the trick with this. It's kind of how well you can get that mass. You can get the fall line really well, but unless you know how heavy the rock is, you're going to go to the wrong place on that line. And so we drew a box that was about a total of about 3 square kilometers on that. We searched most of that. But it was a mixture of terrain, and the ground as well was quite spongy. So you're walking around on it, and your feet are going in, 6 inches, and you just think, what is a rock going to do in that? And then you get a little bit depressed. Yeah, but you don't say that to the other 6 people on the trip, because that's not morale boosting. So this was the following night, and we did get. It was actually, I almost feel privileged to have been in a storm like that. There was so much lightning, and it was striking so close to the cars. It was I don't know, probably about. It felt like a lightning strike every 10 seconds or something like that. It was absolutely incredible. You couldn't sleep in it. You didn't want to sleep in it because it was just so beautiful. You're in the car, so it's actually a really safe place to be. It's like a Faraday cage, so you're fine unless you're a numpty and want to go out and sleep on the ground, which one of my PhD students did want to. He was not allowed to, but he actually wanted to do that. And he's an engineer, right? So he should know electrical stuff. But yeah, so he spent the night in the car as well. But you are really safe in a car. If you're caught out in a storm like that, in a place like Australia where there is no, often it is super flat, then the idea is you kind of hunch up, and so you make yourself small and you just sit on the balls of your feet. So you've got kind of minimum contact area with the ground, and that's best you can do. Yeah. But I think it's something like in Australia, I think it's like 5 or 10 people a year die of lightning strikes, and about 100 are severely injured. So it's a lot worse than snakes or sharks. But it was beautiful. So we carry on searching. You can see that it's kind of spongy ground. And when we're out there, I couldn't, I was thinking all the time that probably this rock has just dropped in it and buried itself. And that's sort of, a pain because you've taken all these people out there and you're walking around for 2 weeks. But, we carried on. We didn't find it, but we put a brave face on it, and then, attempted to look cool. But it was, it's a pain when we didn't find it. A ritual on all of our trips is that you ideally in the field, but if you can't manage that, then you have a formal dinner. So black tie and ball gowns for the ladies, and we've tried to maintain that under all conditions. We've managed to do it so far. At this point, I'm looking a little bit slovenly. Black tie has been removed, so apologies for that. But on this occasion, we were in that little town of Kubapidi, and we had pizza. So that was a formal dinner for that night. It is much more fun when you're actually in the middle of nowhere and you do that. When you're in the field and you make a camp oven and you've got a tablecloth And there's something just great about the complete incongruity of that. I think something quite British about it as well. So I do enjoy that. Okay, so that was the first one, and we came back and we didn't find it, which was a pain. It was 2 weeks. Yeah. So a chunk, it's a pretty big investment of time and effort. And this time we were zooming in on an area kind of to the southeast of where we went before. So this is Lake Eyre, which is the biggest salt lake in the world. And there's two kind of bits of it. There's Lake Eyre North and Lake Eyre South. It's called Katithanda by the Aboriginal people of the area, the Arabana people. And when we were researching in this area, they were really, really helpful. So they actually responded to us far, far quicker than national parks, far quicker than my own university in approving my travel. Like basically, we needed to get out there really fast before it rained again, and the rain got rid of the meteorite. And the next day they said yes, so that was wonderful. So we'd seen this beautiful fireball from a whole bunch of our cameras, and this is kind of just 3 of those images. And we reduced that data, and then basically triangulated that. So now we've got nice constraint from, in this case, 3 different cameras. We actually got up to 5 in the end. So we were able to get a really nice trajectory for it. And basically the thing came in at a really steep angle, pretty fast, decelerated down to a velocity of, I think, just over 4 kilometers a second, and went smack into the lake. But the hassle was that where it landed was 6 kilometers from the shore of the lake in every direction. So that's actually quite a tough one from a logistical point of view. That's what the lake looks like, and you can't put a car on it. It's basically like icing sugar over meters deep of mud. So you try and put a car in there, and it gets bogged straight away. There was a story actually that before we went there, a light aircraft had a ditch in the lake, and they couldn't get out, and they couldn't walk out. So a helicopter was sent there, and the helicopter landed next to the light aircraft, and then it couldn't take off. And so you kind of had this knock-on, no one told me how they got out in the end, but presumably they did. But it's an astonishing place. It's really a very beautiful place. Now, okay, so we've tracked the trajectory of this thing coming in. My colleague had gone out to get some data from cameras that were in the vicinity but weren't connected to us, but were close. So if we had that data, we could firm up the fall position. And I said to him, look, just there's a little light aircraft that we can hire a couple hundred kilometers away, take a flight over, and can we see anything? And so he saw this feature. And obviously that was, quite exciting. You could imagine that being a place where a happy rock had hit the mud and thrown stuff out. And so then it was a question of, how do we get out of there? Basically, how can we get there to that spot safely and get back again? And that took us a couple of weeks to manage to do that. And the problem was that during that 2 weeks, there'd been rain on the lake. So water had been on the lake. So we knew that, that feature probably wouldn't look like that anymore. So finally we got there, and what this had involved was, because it was Christmas, and my university had closed, so travel and all of those kind of just achingly frustrating administrative, had all those people had gone away. So I couldn't get okay for the travel, I couldn't get okay for the finances, I couldn't get okay for anything. So I thought, well, look, if I find the meteorite, then no one's going to care anyway. So I thought the best thing to do, the safest way to do it, was to get hold of a couple of all-terrain quad bikes with balloon tires, and that can get you in and out safely. So I paid for one of those with 3 hits on my corporate credit card, and broke a number of other rules. So this is what it looks like from basically, this is as close as you can get to the shore of the lake. It's, yeah, I mean, there is this kind of gradation into it. From at the outside, you've got a bit of gravel on the top, and you gradually get into it, and after that, it's basically just, it's like ice and sugar. It's salt, but it is white. Yeah, it's really very beautiful. So that's what it looks like getting a little bit, and that's me in the distance on a quad bike, starting to try and get close to the fall site. Now, what we discovered was that because of the water that had already fallen, the surface was actually even muddier than it usually is. So I'd go out a certain distance and get stuck, and then I'd try and wrestle this 300-kilo quad bike out of the mud by kind of revving it and lifting it and shoving it, and then try again in a different place. And so it was kind of picking my way to try and get out to the spot, which was kind of interesting. Because all the time I'm thinking, if I actually have to leave this quad bike there, not only are the Arambana people going to be really pissed off, national parks are going to be really pissed off, and my university is going to be even more pissed off because I've spent all that money and lost the quad bike. That's what it looks like in the middle of the lake. So you've just got this salt, this like perfect white surface going in all directions, and it's really quite astonishing. I've never been anywhere like it. It's kind of, if you could stand on the ocean, I think it would feel like that. It's just so beautiful. But we didn't find the rock. So on the second day, I got all the way out to the spot and had a search, and I could not find that feature. And the error on our position wasn't big, so that was really depressing. And I really tried and spent a long time there, and I was kind of, I was sort of thinking, I really don't know what else we can do. But in getting there, I've never been as muddy as that in my entire life. As a little boy, you just want to get muddy, right? It's part of the fun, and I never got that muddy before, so that at least was something. But you can see I actually had mud stuck to my head, which was quite impressive. So even although we didn't get the rock, I was still kind of chuffed. Now the next day, at the time, we had reports that big rain was going to be coming in. So essentially, if it rained again, then there was absolutely no way that we would be able to get that rock. If any feature that had been there, anything, we'd be stuffed. And the surface was already sticky, so any more rain, we knew that would be it. So I realized that this day was basically going to be our last chance. Driving back the day before, I thought, well, look, if we do a thing where me and my student Robert go out on the lake, and one of my colleagues goes to where the light aircraft is, so he drives like 3 hours to that place. They can actually fly over and talk to us on the shortwave and tell us if they see anything. So we can kind of do two things. We can have boots on the ground and air support at the same time, and so that's what we did. So try and put everything we could into that last day. So this was the light aircraft. You can see it's already drizzling. When we were driving out actually to the site on that day, it was drizzling on us as well. And you kind of, it's the last chance. You put all this effort into it. You're sort of willing the rain to go away, but it really didn't. This is Dean Stewart, who was our Arambana guide on the trip, and he was fantastic. He was such a help. And that's the pilot there on the right. They came over before they actually arrived. Really serious rain started. So absolutely the last place you want to be when it's really raining hard is on the biggest mud bath in Australia, because you can walk out of it, but 6 kilometers of walking in deep mud would not be fun. So we had enough water, we had enough food, but it wouldn't have been very nice. So we kind of pulled out half the way, and then we heard them on the radio and we went back. The rain stopped a bit, and they spotted it. So they spotted this feature from the aircraft, and then they lost it, and it took them half an hour to find it again. And finally they found it, and I said, look, just circle it, and then, it'll be somewhere close to the area that you're circling. So we ran to that, and I started digging. You can see there's just this kind of sort of little salty, rim. That was all that was left from that very obvious feature that was there just a couple of weeks before. And I'm digging. But actually, the thing had punched down about half a meter into the mud. So this meteorite had come in and punched all the way down into the mud. And the mud is like potter's clay. So it was really hanging on to the rock. By the time I got all the way down and actually could feel it, I was trying to yank it out, and it just wouldn't give it up. So in the end, I actually ended up shredding. Oh, hello. Yeah, that's been there. I shredded most of the tendons in my hand because I really wanted to cut up. Yeah. But we got it. That's that little incredibly muddy thing in front of me. And that's what it looks like next to the hole that it was in. And that was just an amazing feeling. That's our first meteorite. Thank you. So great reward for getting cooked and electrocuted in the previous search, and for wading through mud in this one. It felt really, really, really awesome. That's me and my student Robert Howie. He did a great job. Okay, so if we had absolutely fucking amazing. He has just asked me how does it feel to find the meteorite. So there's a kind of
to find your first DFN meteorite. Splendid.
That's the official version.
All right.
So there's a non-bleeped version and a bleeped version. And then just rang everyone in the team to tell them what a great job they'd done. We've got about 10 people in our team, some PhD students, some honours students who help us, a postdoc, a technical person, and they'd all done just an incredible job. What's great about this project, the thing I love about it, is that, it really is this incredible team effort. And everyone does a little bit of everything. Well, apart from me, I don't do any of the maths. But it's fantastic, and they'd all come together to work on this. And it was over Christmas, so most of them were giving up their Christmas to do it, including me, which got me in a lot of trouble. And that's Dean Stewart on the left and Dave Strangway, our guides, holding the rock. My little posse on the ground, and the rock. So it was a great finish to the trip. Thank you very much.
A couple of questions. Number one, how close were you with your non-guided? Because obviously you could tell where you'd been and where you'd searched. How close were you to where you actually needed to be?
It turned out on that first day, I drove to within, I think it was only about 30 meters of the thing. But it was basically, I was looking in my mind, I was looking for something like that feature. And when I ran to it, you had to be within about 10 meters of it, even just standing there to see it. And
you recovered just a single stone. Do you think there's actually a strewn field there someplace?
The chap who flew over it, he couldn't see anything. And the fireball data suggests that it was just a single rock. So we can kind of see it if it breaks up, and it didn't look like it. There you go.
So, Phil, did you consider using like drones or aerial reconnaissance to
Absolutely, we did.
help your job? So you didn't have to.
Absolutely. So we actually took one out on that trip, and Robert took a whole bunch of pictures, and just stared at them through half the night the day before that last day. It actually was on one of the pictures, but he didn't. He was so shredded that he didn't pick it up. It is this really tiny, faint little thing. So drones, I think, is a great way forward with this. Yeah.
And GoPros, maybe.
And go, yep.
Can you go in a little bit more detail about the type of permissions that you may need to get in terms of the land? Because it's one of the things we had to deal with Hayabusa, right? When it landed, we had to get permissions to go in, and in fact, in our case, they had to actually recon the site beforehand to make sure that we weren't treading on any sacred areas and things like that. So some of the things that you may have to deal with as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Australia is kind of an interesting mixture. The meteorites are owned by the government, so that, in a way, that makes things a little bit easier. So if you're a government representative, I'm working with the West Australian Museum, which is the kind of the seat of the government in this case. So that makes it a little bit easier. There are national parks, and if it's a national park, there's quite there's a lot of documentation there. With the indigenous people, mostly they're incorporated, so you've got a contact there who you can get in touch with. So in this case, they were absolutely fantastic, and they got it straight away that we needed to get there quickly, and gave us an answer the next day. It was fantastic. Yeah. It is, but by no means ordinary. No, no, it's beautiful.
Who else has a question?
It is. It's uniquely weathered for an ordinary chondrite fall. I should point out, actually, for anyone who is, I was a meteorite curator at one time, and the idea of someone picking up and handling a fresh fall is just horrible. But remember where this has come from. This was buried 1/2 meter deep in disgusting, organic, rich, briny mud. So really, whatever we do to it after that is fine. Sitting in my hand for 20 minutes really didn't cause it that much of a problem.
Phil, I know there's a citizen science component to the Desert Fireball Network. Did you have anybody contributing data from the app that helped with this particular find?
We didn't. In the bush, basically because population density is so low, no one had it. No one had our app in that area. But I should point out to anyone those people I think saw Yara's talk, so you know about the app. But people had seen it. So people had actually seen the fireball in William Creek, which is where the pilot flew out of. People there had seen it. Yeah. Yeah, people had reported.
Did they have the opportunity to then see the meteorite after you found it?
Sorry, say it again.
Did they have the opportunity to see the meteorite after you found
They
it?
did. So at Marie, which was this is the weird thing in Australia. You end up talking. So I was about to say Marie, the little town. 60 people live in Marie, right? So, but it is a town. It has a hotel, right? So, and because it was New Year's Eve, there was a lot of tourists there. And everyone, it was really nice. Everyone came out and they were looking at it. It was really, so they got really excited.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is it an oriented stone? It looks like it might be oriented.
Yeah, it's this. It looks like kind of it came in. It's sort of heart-shaped. The fusion crust kind of wraps around like that. So I think it did. It flew in like kind of a fat wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now I think you should keep it.
Okay, thank you. All right. We will then. In that case, we will. Mudili, except it would be a rolling R, which I can't do. Yeah. So.
Have you got a picture of the other side?
Of the other side?
Yeah.
No, I've not. I'm sorry. Yeah. We the Arabana people named it for the region of the lake that we found it. So that name has significance for them. Oh, the mass, 1.6 kilograms, something like that. Yeah. Rob Mackey's just has done the density. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you guys all managed to throw and catch that thing. I didn't do very well with that. So.
I did find catching it.
I did. I didn't throw well. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Anybody like to play catch? You again.
Yeah, Bob reduced the density and porosity data, but I took it. But Bob doesn't trust me to
Okay.
reduce it. Anyway, it sat on my desk for about a week before I sent it to the next recipient, and it was weird because you could watch it rust.
Yeah. It's really freaky.
Yeah.
It's so full of salt and I think that helps it. So
Yeah.
it's salty and wet, and for anyone who I actually started out. My PhD was in weathering of meteorites. So my advisor was Colin Pillinger, who some of you might have heard of, and I was a meteorite curator. And it was kind of way back when desert meteorites were just, people were getting excited about them. And he wanted to know how weathered they are. And if you think, 25 years ago, what would be the most exciting PhD project to give to a young, enthusiastic student? It probably wouldn't be weathering of meteorites. But I did manage to kind of squeeze some juice out of it, so that was good. And comfortably, it is one of my most referenced papers, so I've always been a little embarrassed by that. Yes, it is.
So, do you just have a team that's ready to go 24/7 to go out and look for these things? Because you put that together really fast.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's developed actually, because when I started doing these trips with my colleague Alex Bevan, who works at WA Museum, and maybe like 20 years ago. And back then, it was this incredibly it would take 2 months for him to put one of these things together. But we've done so many now because we go to the cameras to service those, and we go to meteorites to try and find those. And it is pretty quick, when you've got all the kit and you keep it well and you keep all the kind of everything the car needs in where so it's easy to pick up. We can put together a trip in like a day.
You just make some phone calls or send out emails and people say, yeah, I'm in, and
Yep.
that's it.
Yeah, so it works well. And we've got, we always make sure there's a couple of people with field first aid. So most of the team's got that. So we can put it together pretty quick.
So everybody's got their trucks hanging in the closet.
Yes, they do.
That'd be the
I
hardest part.
actually do have a field tux.
Any other questions? No? Okay, well, Phil, thank you so much for this really fun talk.
Thank you.
And thank you.